of the Beaches Museum, and I am so happy to see so many faces back here in the museum. It's been a long year for all of us, and this has just been such a great way for us to get things back in gear here at the museum. So a few housekeeping things for you. If you don't already know, the bathrooms are all the way down and on your left, and you can use either exit. Just exit, use the emergency exit closest to you. It may be in front or behind. Always going to do that. I am not providing beverage service during this flight. Anyway, I'm just excited to welcome you guys back. Was anybody here last month for the talk? So this is the second in a series of 4 talks that all have to do with this wonderful exhibit. And this exhibit, for us to be able to host it, is really kind of one of the positive benefits of COVID, because Kathy Stark and I have bumped into each other over many years, and we've always talked about getting her work here, and the timing was never right. There never was really, the right lineup. And with COVID, we took dates off of everything. I'm not canceling or postponing anything anymore. We're just not going to put a date on it. And it worked out that we were able to bring this exhibit in, and it's up from spring to fall. So you got plenty of nondescript dates there. So I'm glad you're seeing it today. And we invite you to please come back and see it between now and whenever it closes, which we don't know. And our museum, is this anyone's first time to the museum? Welcome, Carter, our young aspiring artist, and everyone else, please come back. We have our permanent exhibit here just outside of this door, and then all of the buildings out here in the History Park are part of our exhibit. So you can actually go on docent guided tours of the park. You can also do a self-guided tour out there if you'd like to. So we invite you guys to take advantage of this beautiful gem that we have right here in our community. And anybody members, raise your hand. Museum members, all right, thank you. Membership is one of the best ways to support the Beaches Museum, and we appreciate all of you for your annual contribution in support of us. And just coming and attending these events really makes it all worthwhile for all that we do here to provide this great cultural institution for you. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up the artiste, Kathy Stark, and she is going to lead you through a presentation here, and we'll probably have some time after the event to sign some books. They're for sale. We can help you with that. So please welcome Kathy Stark.
Well, I'm glad to be here and glad to see a nice group. So I am an artist, Jacksonville native, born and raised here, and I'm going to jump in. Let me figure this out, how to turn this. So I'm a professional fine artist. This is my studio in our home. I paint watercolors and oil paintings, and I paint flat on the table for watercolors because they will run otherwise, and use the easel for oil paintings. So I thought you'd just like to see kind of where I go to my office, and I paint what I call flowers in nature. So this is watercolors of Mexican daisies, and these happen to be in Baptist Medical Center South. And that's one of the neat, clients artists have, is because the hospitals have the mission of healing through art. And I also paint what I call tablescapes or still lifes, and these are flowers that I arranged and took photos of and I'm painting from. And then the cheese case is from kind of me snapping a quick photo at Whole Foods Market. And then I also paint landscapes. And so right here on the right is Santa Fe Lakes and Washington Oaks State Park. These are both oil paintings. And but I participate in a gallery downtown called Southlight Gallery, and it's a cooperative gallery of artists. And part of our mission is to activate downtown. And if y'all remember One Spark, the crowd-funded festival, well, it was downtown, and I wanted to participate. But instead of it being just, here's my art, like me, vote for me, I really spent a lot of time thinking through what I wanted to do with One Spark, and it sparked an idea. And that was to create a project. And I thought through that I had 5 paintings of 4 parks, because what I love to do is go hike, bike, canoe, kayak, and dog walk in our park system. So I created the concept of the wilderness of North Florida's parks. And so what I'm gonna do now is kind of go through images from the book and kind of tell you about my art and how the project came about. And first off, it's a project that I did in collaboration with Timucuan Parks Foundation, because their mission aligned with mine. And my mission was to have a unique blend of art and education to showcase our park system. So you probably heard that we have the largest urban park system in the United States. And they're made up of city, state, and national parks, preserves, conservation areas, and forests. But a lot of people don't know about them. I can't tell you how many times we go out to the parks and we're by ourselves, which is great. But if people don't know about these parks, they're not going to want to continue to preserve and protect them. So I wanted to create a book and exhibit and project that showcases the beauty of our city, the real Florida. So one of the things I thought I'd do is create an awesome map. People like maps. People are drawn to maps. And so the map I created, I put downtown in the center. And the concept was, these are parks that take 1 hour drive to get to. And I didn't care if it was who owned it, if it was city, state, or national. I wanted to make it easy for people to get to and to know about. And so one thing I'd like to point out is that dark ring of preserves. Back when John Delaney was our mayor, he realized in going out into the park system that we had an opportunity to preserve more land and create a ring of preserves that would contain urban sprawl. And so that was when Timucuan Parks Foundation was actually started as a nonprofit to help with land acquisition. And so you can see how that ring of preserves was pretty successful up on this upper part, but I'll have to say in this lower part, there is not that ring, and that's like St. Johns County that is just growing like crazy. So and I kind of tried to copy the old style of souvenir maps, kind of thing to draw people and kids into looking at the map. So I was going to start off with our biggest park is the Timucuan Ecological and Historic Preserve. And this is a scene from the shoreline of Kingsley Plantation area, Fort George Island, looking across to the Intercoastal Waterway. And I paid for my own photographs, and I'd go home and mess with them on the laptop and kind of edit and look at them and arrange them and figure out what I want to paint. So this light green area and outline is the Timucuan Preserve. We have the St. Johns River, Atlantic Ocean, and all the parks within there. And it was created in, I don't know what I did there. I did something, sorry. In 1988. And it comprises of national, state, and city parks and preserves, but the National Park System manages this preserve. But if you notice, the dark green areas are the parks, but the light green area, what is that? It's marshes and estuaries. And so that's a lot of what they wanted to make sure they preserved, was where fish and birds, need a home to have their, offspring. So these are pages from my book. Up above and below are photos that I'm sharing from our adventures in these parks. And down below we're behind Big Talbot Island in the vast marsh behind Big Talbot. And one thing that struck me when we were out there was we were out there at low tide at first, but then when the tide started coming in, it was so flat that you could visually see the tide coming in so quickly. And in my book pages, I tried to design, with the map and show people images of what there is to do in the parks. And so just, fishing is a big part of the preserve, and we have Kingsley Plantation here. And so this whole preserve represents about 4,000 years of history and how many acres of land? 80, is it?
Yeah.
40, maybe I'm getting my numbers mixed up, but one thing that always struck me about the Timucuan Preserve is when you're on I-95 and you see an exit for Timucuan Preserve, take a left. Well, it's not just one exit. You reach it from all parts of the city. You reach it, from the beaches, from the north side, from the west and east. It's a big preserve. But the headquarters are at Fort Caroline, and they have a visitor center there. So this is one of my favorite paintings of the Theodore Roosevelt area. How many of y'all have been to the Theodore Roosevelt area? So we need more people to go there. And I would call this an exterior still life, if that makes sense, where I kind of get into a subject matter, and it is outside, but it kind of is so close up, it looks like a still life almost. But this is pretty indicative, I think, of our natural area here that was so typical of North Florida. And that's also on the cover of my book. So this is about the Theodore Roosevelt area, which connects to Fort Caroline in the Arlington area and the National Memorial. And so you can be connected there through a trail system, or you can park in two separate areas. And what is really special about this area was the gentleman named Willie Brown that lived on this land for years and years. His family owned it, and he was offered millions of dollars to develop it, but he chose not to. He chose to give it to the Nature Conservancy, who then gave it to the National Park System. And so it's now available for all of us to go to. And this is one of my favorite views in the city, is from this overlook tower there. And when you turn around, that's the view you have as you turn back from the tower. And once again, this is pretty much the typical of North Florida, this maritime hammock. But the Timucuan Indians lived there years ago. There's shell middens along the trail. You can hike up to one of the highest points in Jacksonville there, and it's very varied terrain. And this is another painting I did of the Theodore Roosevelt area. Artists like to do diptychs and triptychs because they sell well going together. And so for Fort Caroline, that represents a lot of our history of our community, and it represents, when the Spanish and the French kind of fought for foothold in Florida. And you'll see the fort, and that's where they think maybe the fort was. But if you go there, there's a great river view. It's a great place to go have lunch, bring a picnic. In the visitor center for the Timucuan Preserve is located there. And I think they have a new display there. Didn't they redo their display over during COVID? And the Reebok column is just down the road. It's one of the highest points in Jacksonville. So this watercolor is heading down on Fort George Island through heading to Kingsley Plantation. And one of the neat things I did in the book was I put GPS coordinates of the sites of my paintings for the most part, so that you could go put that in your iPhone and try to find that spot. And I like revisiting it. And when I paint a painting, a watercolor, painting flat on a table, and a lot of times I'm only painting about maybe this much, and I'm just kind of zoomed into painting that one area, and I'm looking at my image on the laptop. And so at the end of the day, a lot of times I'll pin it up on a board and step back and look at it and go, oh, this is what I was doing. But I think that if you look around at my art here, my style is realistic, but I kind of amp up the colors so that it's a little juicier and a little brighter. But that, I think, is how people kind of recognize my style. I'm gonna drink the water. Talk too much. So that's how big I like to paint. So this shows the original here. And I buy watercolor in a roll. You can buy it in a roll, and so I can paint as big as I like. And when I'm painting on the table, I roll and unroll it, you know, in front of me. So Fort George Island, this is you know, about Fort George Island, which is a state park, and they turned the Boardwalk Club, a former country club, into a visitor center, and this also can be rented out for weddings. And Kingsley Plantation, which is the national park site, is on the island, and that represents the time before the Civil War, where there was plantations and enslaved people, and there's slave quarters there that are still there because they were made of tabby, and that's really unusual that the materials that these buildings were made of made them last. And one of our favorite things to do is to put in our kayaks behind the Boardwalk Club and go out to the sandbars out there. But we try to go there when it's not a popular weekend because it's a boaters beach or whatever, you know, otherwise. So this is one of my largest paintings of Hannah Park. It's looking up into the trees in the dune system at Hannah Park. And here this shows you how big this watercolor is. And I like the color and that I kind of juiced up there. And you know, Catherine Abbey, she was a Florida historian that really helped back in the 50s increase our state parks. She was an advocate for preserving more land in our state, and it's named after her. The one thing I like about Hannah is the natural dunes where there's not, you know, mansions and houses, that this is a place where we can all enjoy our natural beach setting. And it's one of the places where you can camp in Jacksonville, and freshwater lake, and people love to surf there, and mountain bike trails there as well. So this painting of Little Talbot is, I think, indicative of our coastal shoreline around here with the palm trees and the kind of the scrubby dune nature. And so when I paint a watercolor like this, the blue sky, that big area of blue, what I do is I put a protective frisket on the foreground, which is like a rubber cement frisket to protect the foreground. And then I paint the sky in all one fell swoop, so I don't have brush strokes show in the paper. And so then once that dries, I lift off the frisket, and then it leaves me the white of the foreground. So then I can go and paint the palm trees and the whatever's in the foreground, because with watercolor, you're using the white of the paper, not white paint. So Little Talbot, I'd say, is probably one of our most popular parks and our best known park. And it's really neat because it's got trails, a beach, you know, on one side, and great fishing, and then you can go on the other side and there's great kayaking over there. And it's another place, one of the few places where you can camp. And I have a future painting of this scene right here in the works on the easel right now. So this is another popular park in Jacksonville, Big Talbot, with its, you know, Boneyard Beach. And this is the original is in the hallway here, so it's still available. And so that's the you know, what's so well known is the skeleton of the trees. And here this is framed. So, you know, Big Talbot is got the Black Rock Beach, which is this kind of compressed, kind of like peat soil that seems like lava rocks, but it's really just this soil. And one thing I'd like to highlight that's now there is the Florida Greenway Trail. There is a paved trail that goes along A1A, but it's well away from the road, and it's for walking and biking. So it's a great place to park and go on a bike ride. And we even go all the way up to the Ritz-Carlton for lunch, and then we could come back into the nature and ride back. So Cedar Point, how many of y'all heard of Cedar Point? So not too many. So this is a cedar on Cedar Point, and in the distance is Big Talbot Island, but the intercoastal is right here. And then Cedar Point is this whole area is across the intercoastal from Big Talbot, Little Talbot. It's across the intercoastal. And so I tried to put all these places together. There's a state park, Pumpkin Hill, Betts Tiger is a city park, Cedar Point is a city preserve, Cedar Point is a National Park Service site, and now there's Bogey Creek Preserve, which is North Florida Land Trust's new preserve. And so what has happened is this whole area has been branded the Seven Creeks Recreational Area, and Timucuan Parks Foundation was instrumental in being the convener, collaborator in having the city, state, and people and National Park Services work together to bring about this area, because there were all these individual areas that nobody knew about, but if they worked together to show what's out there, that it make more people more aware of it. It's just an amazing area, and I encourage you to go visit it. And so this is where we put in at the canoe launch that's at Pumpkin Hill, and we paddled around Betts Tiger Point Preserve, and we saw a family of otters, and you know the state park is popular for horseback riding, and there's an old Fitzpatrick plantation remnant there, and it's also a popular fishing lodge point and kayak fishermen. So Thomas Creek Preserve, I've gone through a reflection series during COVID. I switched to oils and I painted a lot of water reflections, but this is a watercolor of Thomas Creek. And Thomas Creek is above the airport, and Thomas Creek and Seton Creek are two preserves that are above the airport that are on the creeks that come off of the Nassau River. And what's neat about these preserves is that they're part of the historic value of it is the site of the southernmost battle of the American Revolution. There was some sort of skirmish there. And so that area is preserved, and you can put in Thomas Creek is a great kayaking spot, and hiking around, and we tend to bike there a lot. And that's Tanner when he was a puppy. Now he's featured in the book as a Where's Waldo kind of feature, where you find him in the pages of the book. So this is the only time that I put people into a painting, and that's for the Jacksonville Baldwin Rail Trail. And this is, to me, one of the more scenic areas near Camp Milton. The McGurk's Creek goes through crosses the trail there. And so the rail trail goes from Jacksonville to Baldwin. You can get on the trail and you ride about 15 miles, turn around, and you've done 30 miles, or you can do sections of it. And in one section is Camp Milton Historic Preserve, which is a city preserve. And that has history from the Civil War, where both Confederate and Union soldiers camped there. A lot of that, I think there were some skirmishes there, but it was also an area where they were on the way to the Battle of Olustee, which is the larger battle that happened in Florida during the Civil War. And they have living history that days there too. There's a farmstead, and it's really a nice place to go for the day, take a picnic kind of place, and walk around. Hold on, let me get my water. I have a bad voice. So this is one of my second favorite paintings, maybe, of the Arboretum. How many of y'all been to the Arboretum? So that's neat that many people have gone there. And so I have out in the hallway. There's a print on canvas of this painting. And the original is in the Baptist Medical Center South's intensive care lobby area. So the Arboretum was once strip mined area of Jacksonville that was, mined, and just they took all the good stuff out of the earth, and it was left fallow for many years. The city owned it, and then a group of individuals created a nonprofit working through the city to open the Arboretum in gardens. And So if you go there, I like it because it's got all these small trails that you can go to, connect, do more and more, and or as little as you like. And it's really a varied terrain too. And I like too that they label a lot of the plants there. So I think this is a great place to take people from out of town, depending on what they're able to do. So this painting is of Tilly Fowler Regional Park, which is near where we live. And then when I say we, it was my husband, Rick, and I go there almost once a week. And this was from a photo I took just with my cell phone, my reference photo, that I just was caught by the way the light was coming through the trees. And when we took this photo, we hiked the painting about a mile up the trail to be in the site of the painting. And the bugs were biting me while I was taking that photo. But Tilly Fowler is right across the way from NAS and the Naval Air Station. And it has some neat history that dates back to World War I, where it was used as a barracks type training facility. And there's still a historic brick road that was part of that encampment there that's still there. And it's on the Ortega River. There's mountain bike trails. They have a pretty developed mountain bike area, a dog park, and it's named after Tilly Fowler, one of our U.S. representatives. So this is the mountain bike trails here where we were hiking. So this painting is kind of the shoreline of our river, which so many of our parks are on the river, but this is pretty indicative of the more freshwater part of the St. Johns River with all the cypress trees. And so one of the parks that I like on the river is Walter Jones Historic Park. How many of y'all been to that? So that's a great place to visit. And it's neat because there's a museum there. They have history from the Civil War, Mandarin's history, Harriet Beecher Stowe. About her, there's a historic homestead there, a schoolhouse that's there. And so that's definitely a good Saturday, Sunday visit to go do. And Alpine Grove Park has a former Orange Grove homestead, and that's, I think, a good picnic place with a pretty view of the river. So Julian-to-Durbin's Creek Preserve, here's another one of my reflections. This is near Durban, on the Durban kind of swampy part, and I'm kind of doing my exterior still life look. So Durban Creek's Preserve is a peninsula that is created by Julington going on one side and Durban on the other side, and this is a more relatively newer preserve, and it was threatened a couple of years back where the developer wanted some of the land back, but it people really stood up and protested that. And if you look at it on the map, I mean, there's very little other places for people to get outside, and I think its popularity has grown as that area has gotten developed. It's gotten really more use. And this is the Durban Creek down here, and you can put in the new ramp, I think is ready at Racetrack Road for you to go paddle on Durban Creek. And so here we have Guana, which is near here in South Ponte Vedra. And these are scenes from a kayak trip that I'm always taking, photos from kayaks and canoes. And so this is a National Estuarine Research Reserve. And so there's this big reserve here, and there's a whole nother section near Palm Coast. And this is this area. They have an education center, and they do a lot of research, and they have volunteers that work there. My husband volunteers there regularly. And so there's places to hike there and fish. And this is what I love about it, is the natural, dunes that are there where you can just go and the beach the way it used to be and still is there. So those are the pages about the parks. And what I also did in my book was I highlighted the nonprofit groups that help make the parks be what they are. And, the main one that's been my partner is Timucuan Parks Foundation, and I now serve on the board of it. But, originally they were started to help with land acquisition, help the city with land acquisition. But then once they got all this parkland, they then wanted to activate it and promote it and help continue to preserve it and develop it and educate people about it. And so this Napoleon Bonaparte Broward House, historic house, is where their headquarters are. And it's owned by the National Park Service, but they use that as their headquarters. And I'm gonna give Felicia a minute to talk to y'all at the very end, but that's what this whole exhibit is about now, is these 4 paintings here were created for the 20th anniversary of Timucuan Parks Foundation. So I hope you'll look at the panels about the organization, and I'll get back to that in a little bit. But you can't quite see it with all the chairs, so you need to come back to see that part. So all 60 of the parks are in the book. They don't all have paintings, but I did do entries for all 60 parks, so they're smaller entries. And I tried to aim the book at families. So what do you see when you go to a park? And a lot of times is you see the animal tracks. The animals are long gone by the time you get there. And the Where's Waldo kind of feature. And I did an index for all the animals that I had in the book. And these animals here in this exhibit were painted, they're watercolors that I painted for this special exhibit. So those are original watercolors as well. So my book launched in February of 2017. And this is the shameless marketing part of my the map pulls out of the book. There's hardback and paperback, and they sell it here at the museum. I pre-signed them, but I'd be glad to direct it to anybody, like to whoever, if you like. But it's I think a really neat resource for our city to teach people just about our community, about our history, and of Jacksonville. I learned more in researching and going to all these places, because I had not been to a lot of the conservation areas or forests, but we went to all of these places to figure out what was out there. So one neat thing about the book too is that I asked Mark Woods to do a foreword. And so through words, I think he inspires you to go to the parks, whereas I hope that my art inspires you to go to the parks. And then Bob Graham, our former governor and senator, he wrote the afterword, because in his retirement, his focus has been preserving more of Florida in general, because he kind of gives you a message, okay, this is what's going on in Jacksonville, but now I want you to think about, Florida and how we need to set aside land there. So I was able to have Merrill Lynch sponsor the book, because Timucuan Parks Foundation was my partner, and so they were able to work with Timucuan Parks Foundation in sponsoring the book, and they donated copies of the hardback book to all the public libraries and all the public school libraries in the four counties that I highlight in the book. So that was part of the sponsorship. So it also, when the book launched, the exhibit launched at Mosh, and so it's part of this part in the back is part of the exhibit from the book. Is this, we had more space in this exhibit to show more, and so it traveled to all 4 counties that are in the book. I had it travel for a couple of years, and so now we now then created, to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Timucuan Parks Foundation, we created a special exhibit. And so this is the 3rd place that this exhibit has traveled to, teach people about the foundation, about what they do. And one of the key things that we were wanting to instill to people is that our parks of place. And so that panel is over here, which you can read. And you know, our natural identity is through our parks. And to me, that's just, I don't know, the real Florida, the real Jacksonville, and what I always have to go to periodically to recharge. And another thing that we wanted to highlight too is that our parks give us a sense of well-being. That is, just like I said, where we want to go get back to nature and get away from, during the pandemic, people were really looking for places to go to and get away. And so my book was popular during that time as well, where people were needing a resource to find. So in conclusion, I really like this quote by Henry David Thoreau, where he said that these special places are like little oases of wildness in the desert of our civilization, and how we, you know, need to not pave over everything, but set aside these areas for us to get to nature. And when I go out to these places, I do view them as nature's cathedral. So that's it. If anybody has questions, I want you to ask anything if you like. Yes?
Yeah, have you done a painting of the waterfalls in Bulls Bay?
No, I did not put that in the book, and it just became a preserve a few years ago after my book. But I just went there during the pandemic. It was the first time I'd been there to Bulls Bay. So if I do a new edition, there's several things I want to add to the book. Yes.
How long would it take you to create that?
The original?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the original is about 4 by 5 and 5 feet, and a lot of times when it's all detail all around, I'm probably painting this much in a day. And so it can take, 3-4 weeks. I mean, if you compress the time of work, and I don't always work 8 hours a day. But I do listen to books while I paint. Once I've decided on what I paint, I listen to books, and it kind of keeps me sitting still so I can, focus on, because I do, for some reason, paint in detail and take some time. Any other questions? So my other shameless marketing thing is just to mention that all the artwork is for sale, and it comes in other sizes, and it can also be printed on canvas, and there are also originals that are available. And if you purchase anything, it would benefit the museum. So they get a portion of any sales of any art. And we have a book too that shows all the other images.
I knew I was forgetting something in my little scan.
Yeah. So I don't know, Felicia wanted to just give you a little rundown of encouragement.
Well, you did, you gave a great spiel about Timucuan Parks Foundation, and thanks for, we love having Kathy's support because it puts a different angle on the parks. We usually talk to people who go to the parks. They're runners, or they're bikers, or they're fishermen, and we know that the parks are available and free for anybody to get healthy or to just mentally and physically. And so one of our missions is to get people out to the parks. And so we offer some opportunities to take people where we have opportunities to do a healthy living walks, where we have some programming where you come to a park, we do some light stretches, we walk for 1 or 2 miles, and then we do some programming like plein air painting or a ranger program. We started doing beginning hiking, women only, partnering with North Florida Trailblazers. We just come out and we go for a hike. And we're doing more of that. We do a lot of urban outreach for underserved youth. And so there's different ways to get out to the parks. We encourage you to go out there and enjoy. The national parks here are all free. The national preserves here are free. Fort Caroline and Kingsley Plantation and Cedar Point, Theodore Roosevelt. The two at the visitor centers, Fort Carolina and Kingsley, are open Wednesday through Sunday. And they're starting to open up more and more and having more ranger interaction. The state parks are $5, and most of the city preservation parks are free, except for Hannah's $5 and Huguenot's $5. But then again, a lot of them, we call them our wilderness parks, because you'll go to the park, there's some parking, there might just be a portalette, there isn't always a nice restroom there. But when as soon as you step out of that car and you start walking, you're in the woods, and it's just some beautiful landscapes. So we would encourage you to either sign up out here or go to timucuanparks.org and look us up, and we'll be posting opportunities to volunteer. Also, if you're just getting bored, you can volunteer. And we were at Bulls Bay just last week, and we pulled out 28 tires and 35 bags of trash. We have another one next week at Bosco Regional Park, and then we'll be doing a couple of others. So they're posted right now on the website, but if you just go on and say, I'd like to volunteer, we'll send you information about that. If you are somebody who, you like the woods and you like to hear about it, you like to look at books about them, you don't necessarily want to go there. We figure since you're here, you do understand how valuable they are. And so we would encourage you to become a member of Timucuan Parks Foundation or donate so that we can help our mission of preserving and offering these opportunities for health and equity to get out in the woods. So, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for the 20th.
How about the next
Thank you for coming to us today and lending your talent to capturing these beautiful places. There's no mistaking when you look at these pieces, you're like, yes, Northeast Florida. Like you could be anywhere in the world if you saw this one, especially to me. I'm like, yeah, no, I hiked there. I don't even know which one that is, but I'm like, yeah, I've definitely been there. And I also want to put a plug in for Walter Jones Historical Park, because that's where our kind of sister historical society, Manor Historical, is there, and it's just a beautiful park. It's well done. The city maintains their park, though. Anyway, I'm not worried about that. The view from the pier, the dock out there, it took them a long time to rebuild that after whatever storm took it out, but it's reopened now, and what a great place to watch sunset or just enjoy the beautiful river. I do want to take a second and recognize our next exhibitor, Teresa Rygashevsky. Did I do it right? We're going to be, Teresa and her husband Todd are actually, they run Word Revolt Art Gallery, which is on Mayport Road. So when we were thinking about kind of the theme for this year, we wanted to let's just go back to nature and appreciate the beautiful nature that we have surrounding us. And I saw a promotion of her series about Dutton Island Preserve, and I reached out and I said, do you think you could pull a show together? And she has another artist, Kristen Chronic, that is going to be, they're going to put together a joint show, and it's going to open in the fall. ATBD. But our next talk in this series of 4, and I brought the card in last time because I was being prepared and now I don't have it, but it's going to be the 2 photographers. Oh, a plug for volunteers. Everything we do is not huge, but we love our volunteers. Reggie, another volunteer. July 15th, Land and Air, the Nature Photography of Will Dickey and Tom Chipinella. And we'll turn this back on, but this slideshow runs through a lot of their work, and they're just both incredible photographers. So I'm excited to hear from them as well. So we will pull the screen up so you can walk around and enjoy the exhibit a little bit if you want. Don't mind the clanking of us putting these terrible metal chairs away, but the permanent exhibit is open too. If you want to do a cruise through while you're here, you're more than welcome to do that. So any last words? You good? Yeah. All right. Thank you guys all for coming. Reggie reminded me to remind you, please buy books. Have them signed by the artist or personalized by the artist, and we'll be happy to do that for you. Thank you.